this place. Dante's Inferno, the devil's maze.
Guys, welcome back. This is the Built by Vitality podcast. My name is Steve Pinkerton, and I'm sitting with
Philip Lewis.
And we have the boys from Thunder Valley Fitness with us today, Chris and Brad, who came down from Johnson City,
Tennessee.
I was hoping you were going to mess that
North
up.
Carolina.
And, I thought this would be a good time to sit down with them. They've been doing this. They got their L1 9 years ago. I'll let them tell them that story here in a second. And we're going to look at the life cycle. We're going to look at the life cycle of an entrepreneur. And I think you can make the connection between a gym owner to any small business owner. And there's going to be a life cycle of things that take place from starting and what your mind was focused on day one to kind of maybe that 4 to 5 year mark, and then what it felt like at the 9 year mark when you can kind of you can look back and say, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have sweat all the small stuff. But at the same token, if you didn't sweat those things, you wouldn't have learned and progressed through that cycle or that season. So before we get started, Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit about you guys, because I have a very distinct memory of these guys coming down and getting a level one. More so, nothing against Brad, but more so this large human across from me. I got to tell you, when I saw him walk in, there was a part of me that was a little happy. I was like, gosh, this big boy. Again, he says he doesn't realize how big he was. He was 275 pounds at least.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
All the 275.
Yep.
So when I saw him, I'm like, most big guys can't move like that.
Yeah.
I bet you old Fran is gonna mess him up.
Yeah.
There just weren't big CrossFitters at that time.
There wasn't.
What, Rob Orlando maybe?
Yeah. And Rob Orlando was 200 pounds.
Okay.
I remember I just watched a video of Rob Orlando doing 100 bodyweight back squats unbroken. Mm-hmm. At bodyweight was 200 pounds. And you're right, he was the big guy in CrossFit, the strong man. Now, granted, he was strong as an ox, but there weren't 285 pound CrossFitters showing up on L1 weekends. So when he came in, I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be fun." Kind of got some popcorn, sat front row.
Man.
But I say he disappointed me, but he did well. I was disappointed that I didn't see him throw up all over.
You wanted me getting sick, didn't you?
I kind of wanted to get sick. So, no, Brad, what was that like? So that was 9 years ago.
Yeah, actually this week.
Yeah.
Facebook memory popped up and reminded me.
Old Vitality, you guys come down. You guys hadn't opened your gym yet?
Nope. So we were looking to open in January 2013. So we naturally have to get L1 certified before we can, put in our application to become an affiliate. So yeah, it was Friday afternoon, and so we decided to come check out the spot because seminars starting certification is starting the next day. So we come in, see you. You're an abnormally large human as well.
That's when he told me he didn't have a T-shirt to fit me either. So it wasn't just
have any triple X's around here.
The complex started on Friday afternoon.
Yes,
when I said,
yes.
Sorry, man, we don't have triple XL. We're on a shoestring budget these days. Don't have a lot of those.
No, but we go back to our hotel, and Chris is standing in front of the mirror and just so offended that you called him big guy.
He took 100%. My butt was hurt. I was like, "What the hell? Look at that thing."
It's like, I don't feel like I'm fat.
It's funny because I looked at that term of a big guy being like an endearing term, like here's a fellow big guy doing CrossFit.
Oh, now I'm a fellow.
Yeah,
You're working it in now.
But at the time you got guys like Philip, who's kind of you're
I'm
below.
athletic. I'm normal.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Well, you fit the avatar.
Yeah,
CrossFit.
Yes.
like the feminine kind of feel.
5'9", 180-ish.
But then so yeah, I was giving my guy a compliment, and I didn't realize I gave him a complex going back to the hotel. But
no, I remember Saturday afternoon. We're getting ramped up for Fran, and all of a sudden Steve just like kind of pops out from the balcony, getting ready to witness this Fran from this behemoth over here. So
it was always fun because I could talk to a lot of the L1 staff, and we'd kind of, nicely say, we're looking forward to seeing so-and-so, and then we all get a really good athlete this way, here. And I remember when Nate Schrader got his L1 at Vitality, and he set the record for Fran. It was like a ridiculous time, and no one really understood how good he was. I said, "Oh man, that's Nate Schroeder. He's new really well." They said, "Really? You think he'll go unbroken?" I said, "Will he go unbroken?" He's going to get like 225. They're like, "No," and he smashes it. Oh, gosh.
Do you remember your time?
Yeah, it was. We talked about it today. It was like 4:08 or 4:13.
Yeah.
something
Still
like
pretty
that.
good.
Which is
sub 5 is like the goal for that.
But
right?
you got to
Like,
think, we're looking at this saying, "Oh, that's pretty good," because we're looking at of an experienced CrossFitter doing Fran. You got to think of a 285-pound man that's never done CrossFit before. Because now Chris's background before CrossFit was Globo Gym. You were a trainer, a personal trainer.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, a center college
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
So
So a 4 minute might as well
was
be
really good.
You might as well be getting 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Well, I made sure I could get it under 2 minutes after I was done with my CrossFit career.
So that's how I met these guys, and then I started working with them. Man,
Well, I come down about a month after that and done your comp.
oh, that's right, the Kyle Maynard.
Yeah, and that really pushed me over the edge. And I, as soon as I was done with that day, I got on the phone and called Brad, and I was like, "All right, we're doing it Monday." So, I mean, I believe Brad turned in his notice right after that, and then I kept working at both locations while we was opening the box.
Mhm.
And it was the whirlwind started after Kyle Maynard. After you hear that, dude,
Yeah.
you're gonna do something.
Yeah.
You're gonna do something that's going to challenge yourself.
So when you guys open up in 2014?
13.
13. At
yeah.
the early 2013.
Correct.
Okay.
January 1. That's what we're doing.
And that was your first location. And how long? So your mindset when you first opened, it was more of I would say probably a passion of just getting involved. Like, hey, I want to do this. I don't really know how it's going to work. I don't really know what to do here. I just want to let's get open and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we had both worked the biggest Globo gym in Johnson City, and so we had a nice little following of personal training clients that came over, and luckily a lot of them paid for multiple months up front and gave us both a nice little cushion to develop our CrossFit program. So we maybe started day one with 12 members or something, Chris, and then our personal training clients negotiated a little bit of free rent to start. So that we had a 4-month cushion basically to develop everything. And I remember we had sit down and drew out some projections before we opened the business, and I think our goal by second month was like 30 members.
Yeah, we hit that the first month.
Yep.
And these goals was wrote out on a Cheddar's napkin sitting at a bar. I just want to clear that up. Every meeting we ever had was on a napkin. And we've gotten a little bit more sophisticated now, but it was.
And I think that's when you look back and anybody looks back, even when you hear Elon Musk talk, you talk about two ends of the spectrum, it's us guys that are doing small business type of stuff, and then you've got Elon Musk at the astronomical level that he's at. When you look back to when everybody starts, it's all like that. It's all scribbling it down, just trying to figure out as you go. No one has these established battle rhythms that, okay, we're going to do meetings on Mondays for this and Fridays for this, and we're going to do, there just wasn't that time, and there wasn't that knowledge base to say, okay, here's I think how we can streamline this. So I think doing it that way is pretty par for the course.
and it makes it hard when you're starting out too, and that's we just talked about. That's why when you start a business in the first 3 years, it's like 50-60% of them's already out of business.
Yeah.
But when me and Brad started it, we both knew that we didn't need any policies or procedures or rules because it's just me and him. I mean, that's what the grind was for the first 2 years.
Yeah, I believe we let our only coach one class a week. We coached every class otherwise. So, and that was the way it was for the first year and a half. And Chris had a 1-year-old, and I wasn't married, no kids yet. So
it wasn't no problem working 120 hours a week then, and to build this baby up that we have now.
So let's fast forward. I remember talking to you guys about when you made the first move, and what do you think triggered the first move. I think that's kind of, you know, in the gym world, in the CrossFit world, you can look at your cycles and your you know, that season by usually I've moved locations or I've changed locations. In other, I guess you could call on other businesses, maybe it's an expansion, maybe it's a merger or some type of growth. But in CrossFit, it's very simple to associate that season with I'm going to switch locations. What made you guys want to switch?
So it's ironic. Chris and I, in the first 2 years of business, we kind of have our ups and downs. I would be down and he would kind of pick me up, and then vice versa. And it was October of 15. Our main competitor in town actually went out of business, and we gained this huge surplus of members in a month.
Yeah, we also was dabbling around at that same time. It was bringing on another program. Mm-hmm. You know, and we because there was like 4 or 5 gyms before this one closed down in our little, you know, 70,000 population city that we're in, and we was like, well, we got to do something to differentiate ourselves, and we got to do it now, because I just don't want to get lost in the CrossFit of the whole town of CrossFit. I want us to be known as Thunder Valley for a reason. So we was playing around with creating a boot camp program to kind of, because you know, you get that. It's just like when people see it on TV, they're like, oh, I can't do that. That's too crazy. Mm-hmm. Oh, everybody gets hurt. I mean, we had doctors in town saying, oh, don't do CrossFit, you'll get hurt. And I'm like, no, you know, and I'm sure anybody's going to get hurt starting a program. But, you know, and then the gym closed down, like Brad was saying.
But so we get the surplus of members, and I remember we just kind of were both in a funk even after adding these 30 to 40 members that we just got from this other facility. I remember Chris reaching out, and it's like, I think we need a business coach. And, you know, Chris Cooper's great, but he just wasn't the appropriate fit for us. So I remember Chris hit you up, and we got on an initial call with you, and you were just really stressing the importance of how you thought the next wave of successful CrossFit gyms were going to be the bigger ones that kind of set themselves apart. So that's kind of how I remember we started working with you, and you helped us get into this larger facility.
Maybe that's the first season that took place. Is you know, that first transition was, okay, I've gotten this main source of revenue, this revenue stream that I've gotten pretty good at. The next thing, can we pivot and stay in the same lane, not do something different, but can we bring in an appeal to a different demographic? And that's where at Vitality, that was EvoFit all day long. And as soon as we saw that, exactly what Chris is saying, you know, now you could take the fear out of everybody and say, okay, you know what, you're right. We're going to start it with EvoFit. So now people in the business side, you could say, what if you could replicate another revenue stream inside your gym? Mm-hmm. And now you guys start to look at, okay, I remember having the conversation with this bigger space that you guys were going to move to. Man, you could really run 2 programs simultaneously and really double your membership, double your growth, and double your revenue, and not even feel the pain of that. And now I think that life cycle was, how do we do this smarter? How do we start thinking about operational capacity and maximizing the amount of not what me and Brad and the two of you guys had to do, but we can now have someone else do some of the work for us. And then I think that's when you make your first big hire, and that's part of that second step where you made the move, you hired Melissa, now you did Fit Club. And how did that change your business structure and I guess how you guys perceived the business?
Well, you know, when we started working with you, that was the year that Camille and Rich had won the CrossFit Games, and I felt like CrossFit was basically at its peak, and it's when the brand really got to be known and people had already formed their opinions, you know, about it. So we were roughly at 120 to 30 members at that point. You introduced this program to us. We sent Melissa over here. You hung out with her, said it would be a great fit. And you were telling us about the success of Evo and Fit and how, I believe at the time, you had a bigger base than you did your CrossFit program. So it made sense for us to try and make this the next evolution of our business to get customers that we never would get in the door.
Correct, because the barrier of entry is just so much easier to come when you say Fit Club. You know, they would never understand they're doing the exact same movements just with a different piece of equipment than a barbell. So I don't think anybody's ever said, I think it's too hard for me coming into that program, which, you know, that eliminates one big objective, you know, and just to get them walk in the door and have something they could do that day is key. And, you know, and not having them wait on the next on-ramp class, or is there going to be an on-ramp class? Is there enough new ones to put in an on-ramp class? I mean, there's just a lot of variables on that CrossFit side. And, you know, you never want them to wait. You know, I mean, they're walked in your door. They might not walk back, so you have to do something that day.
And I think that's where the efficiency piece, you know, whether it's operational capacity or efficiency, how quickly and efficiently can we bring someone a client and make that acquisition without losing them, without losing the momentum. And I think that just takes, it doesn't matter what job you do, what business you start. In the beginning, you weren't thinking about efficiency. You were just thinking about surviving. Like, how do I make it through a week? And then, you know, you start to be able to look a little bit further out and say, okay, well, wait a second. What if I could take my 130 members and get 100 more members and be able to efficiently bring them on? Now all of a sudden I can increase my revenue, I can buy new equipment, I can start new programs. So what you guys did, you guys start Fit Club. How quickly, how would you define your success with Fit Club when you offered that program?
I remember having different tiers for Melissa, and, you know, her percentage she would make would change based on membership of the program. And I remember she was already at her highest tier within 6 months.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was a big boom.
Yeah, I would say by January. So we opened our Fit Club program in May of 17, and by January, we were over the 200 member mark with the two programs combined.
So then you look at it, then I can think back and say, okay, you know, one of the reasons that you bring someone else on, you start another program, is you can start to pull back the amount of time that, you know, we all talk about it. You know, you're either going to work in your business or on your business. And I think it took me 5 years before I could get out of it and be able to take a step back and really work, you know, on it. And what that does, which you never would have been able to do, in my opinion, is you then pivot again and say, okay, well, I think there's another program that we could offer. I think we can maximize some space. And if you don't pull back the reins and give yourself the ability to sit back and have the time to put your energy into the business, you never see it. But now you guys took a step back. Your revenues were going, you know, increasing rapidly. And now you said, okay, you saw that little bit of success and you're like, okay, well, I bet you I can create a third program. Well, talk to us about that third program.
Yeah, this is you know, I don't want to just talk about all of our successes that we've had over 9 years. This is an important learning lesson within our journey. But we knew that Orange Theory was an up-and-coming fitness franchise. It wasn't in Johnson City yet. And so I said, let's do our best Orange Theory impression. And we started this Burn program. So it's a whole cardio class and some body weight movements with the air runner, your ski erg, your bike erg, and your rower. So 8-person class, real intimate. We were gaining momentum with it. We opened that in October of 19, and right when we were gaining traction with it, COVID, you know, pandemic hits. So, and obviously when you have the smallest room in the whole facility and in multiple touch points within a class setting, like, that's going to be the area of the gym that is going to be most susceptible for spread of.
We had what is that room? 1,800 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we had 1,800 square feet of storage. So we was like, we're paying rent on this and we're just putting junk in there. So let's do something with it. You know, we took a swing at it, and, you know, I'm not going to say it failed. You know, the trends of fitness, you know, it takes time to come to East Tennessee. You know, what we see in Atlanta right now or in Charlotte right here, you know, it'll be 6-8 months before it'll get up to us in the mountains.
And wouldn't you know, like, Orange Theory's opening in 2 weeks in Johnson City.
Exactly.
So I was 2 years, you know, kind of ahead the curve. So,
well, the good thing is that people might go to it and see, you know, and see what it actually is, and then they'll be like, why ain't you doing Burn anymore?
Yeah.
You know, because they just didn't understand it because they've never seen it unless they're traveling, a businessman that's going to be in big cities all the time, which.
But when you guys talk about burn, I think one thing people need to understand is when you say, as a storage, what they did was they took the storage closet, this 1,800 square feet of storage, but they made it beautiful. They made it super nice. You had a really nice floor. You had a great paint scheme. You had a great logo. It was branded really well. So I think when you look at that, again, I go back to every entrepreneur out there. They've all, I'm not saying it's a mistake, but they've all had something that didn't take off the way they wanted it, whether it was a pandemic related or it was just bad time, whatever it might have been. But I guarantee you the skill set that you learned from that will springboard you way forward down the line when it comes time to do this again, because that was a really, I'm a huge fan of that idea. I think that should have worked, and it probably would have worked if the COVID didn't smack us in the face.
Yeah. So what I learned from that is the aesthetics of your facility really go a long way, because we were very warehouse and industrial. And then anytime anyone would walk into the room, they're just like, whoa, this is connected to the same facility. So I learned the importance of how people do appreciate the aesthetics of a program. And
and CrossFit has moved on from what me and you thought CrossFit was and what we wanted it to be in our garage gyms.
Yeah,
we wanted it to be gritty, wanted the music. You remember the old days. And I mean, you just walked into a back alley somewhere and you had a metal door and you rolled it up and you got some barbells out.
2013 people are putting pictures of their hands when they rip them on Instagram, and I do not want anybody putting those pictures on today,
And that, again, that goes back to that life cycle of, what we thought people wanted to see in the early days, probably didn't do us any favors even back then. We just thought it was something that was the way it should be when someone's throwing up in the I never wanted someone to throw up in our parking lot, because I was like, man,
people gonna walk
Phil's
through
gonna be out throwing in the parking lot, throwing up in the parking lot, and someone else is coming in for their first class, going like, what in the world? We had a guy the other day, I don't know, maybe a month ago. He finished a EvoFit class I was coaching. And someone texted me, one of my coaches texted me a picture. He said, hey, what'd you do to Michael? And he was laying out, and he had both doors open in his car. He was laying on the parking lot with his feet up on the bumper of the car, like in the middle of the parking lot, just laying there. And I was like, oh, man, here we go.
When people tag us and stuff like that on our social media, if their hands are all bloody or something, and they tag us, I typically just like that message, and I try not to share it to our story.
Oh, of course.
In case, people come across, like you said, somebody might randomly go to our Instagram and be like, let's check out this shit. Oh, maybe I shouldn't.
I ain't ready for
I don't
that.
know. I don't want that in my head. Yeah.
So you guys were at that location, and then now the next season we go into, now you start saying, okay, well, wait a second. We've got these two programs. Burn didn't work out. Now can we focus even more on some operational capacity? Can we focus even more on being efficient with our fixed costs? Why am I been doing this for 7 or 8 years and not paying myself rent? Why am I paying someone else? This is what I want to do long term. Mm-hmm. So then you start looking at buying a building. So then we make our second move into where you're at now, which size-wise, how far did we scale back in this most recent move?
Well, we had an 11,000 square foot facility previously, and we're now at 3,000, which is
but that 11,000, we only used 6?
Yes.
I mean,
so our old spot had this huge, massive wood floor. It was a 94 by 30 or something ridiculous, and it was basically just used to store equipment. It wasn't actual working space. Mm-hmm. The actual working space for Fit Club and CrossFit were roughly around 3,000. So I told people, even though we're downsizing our facility, your working space in class is actually bigger than it was at the previous location. Mm-hmm. So, Chris and I used to work at a Globo gym, like I was saying, and one of the trainers there was 65, and the guy would work first thing in the morning to the evening. And so when you think about our journey, you don't want to be that guy.
Nothing's wrong with that guy.
No.
It's just that, I don't want to put in 100 hours when I'm 65 grinding in a gym.
Yep.
So you got to think of the next evolution of the business and how you're going to accumulate wealth and continue to progress. And so naturally, I hit you up whenever the housing market went crazy, and knew I had an opportunity to sell this house that I'd only been in 2.5 years and make a substantial amount of money, so we could possibly look at purchasing. So I remember you said this is the easiest call we've ever had. It was like a 10-minute call. And you're like, we're done, bro.
Yeah.
I do remember going home and telling Jess, I said, I think I just talked Brad Weems into selling his house. And I don't know if his wife was going to like that or not.
Man.
But it really was. I mean, the way that the housing market was, the way that you had this opportunity for this new building, from where I was sitting, it was such an easy call. I knew it wasn't going to be easy to execute and be able to get through. But, man, you look at where your guys' heads were at, that was the next
Well,
step.
You've met my wife before, and she really liked you until that night. It took a week of convincing her to sell this house and to make this move. And but it's been a tough and challenging 9 to 10 months since that. And but next week we're going to be buying our land to build our new house.
Yep.
So it's a 2-year step back, but like Chris and I were talking on the way up here today, like we're finally seeing the benefits of all the tough work that we've put in the
trials
past
and
few
error of
months.
it.
And
Well, you said
paying off.
the past few months. I think you could draw that all the way back and say, people need to understand, and I think that's one of the biggest problems and why entrepreneurs don't last is because they have such a hard time playing the long game. Everybody wants this immediate gratification, and you guys said, you know what? I'm okay with delaying all this stuff, but now guess what? 9 years later, we're about to be where we want to be. And all of that wouldn't have happened unless all these other steps kind of fell into place. Like we were talking about before we jumped on here, it's impossible for an entrepreneur to start day one and act like they've been doing this for 9 years. It just takes that much time. And I think a lot of people just don't have the patience, and that's okay. I wouldn't say that entrepreneurs are patient, but I think that we're realistic in the fact that, you know what, this is going to suck for a while. It's not going to be 6 months or a year. It's going to suck for a couple years. And then you know what? You're going to feel great, but then you can't get comfortable. And so if you guys follow that, you guys are in that first building, things are going well, and you're like, ooh, we need to do something different. Well, you guys could have stayed in that first spot and been comfortable, but there wouldn't have been much longevity in it. So you say, okay, you know what? Let's suck it up. We'll move. We'll go through this whole thing. That was painful. And then you get to the second building, and you're like, okay, this is even better. We got 2 programs. We've got the time and the energy to put this third program into place. Now you're really getting into working on the business. And then you say, okay, well, wait a second. I think we want to own our building. Well, now that kicks that comfort can 3 years, 2 years down the road. But now you look back and you're like, okay, now we're getting close. Now you've got some tenants paying rent. We talked about, the amount of money you guys are saving by downsizing, and all the while, you're still providing the same experience, if not better, for the clients that you have.
So with this move, we took one of the plays out of your book, which is always replenishing and bringing in new equipment. And so all new ergs. We're right now in the process of replacing all of our barbells. And I literally walked up.
All new bikes.
All new bikes, yeah. I walked up to Melissa the other day. I'm like, what do we need to make this better? She's like, maybe like a pair of 15-pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
And I'm like, awesome. That's great. So, I can foresee our next step aggressively paying this building off as fast as possible to get that passive income, and then look at future purchases of commercial real estate.
And I think that's an interesting view, because there's, some people would argue that to carry that debt and to leverage that and whatever. And I like the idea. What's the easiest way that we can increase our cash flow? It's either get more members, which causes more stress, which causes more strain on equipment, or eliminate your expenses. And so if you can take our debt down, and that's paying off our debt and increasing our long-term cash flow, it's a great play. And then, you know what? Fine, pay that building off, and now you can take some equity out of the building. If we wanted to borrow some money to go do something different, you can still do that. But now it limits your risk by owning outright that asset. And then now you guys, is that the plan? That the plan is now to, in the next 2 to 4 years, looking at some other assets that you can purchase, real estate, whatever, and get into some passive revenue that comes back?
Most definitely. I mean, just the exact model you have here. And I think it's going to help me enjoy the gym culture more, because you're not having to worry about, okay, we've got to get 10 to 20 members because we lost some. It takes some of that stress off. And,
well, I mean, it was in our new facility. We done it right. In the newest one we're buying now, it's it's real nice. We put on 27 members, and
in our first 6 weeks.
Yeah, and that's because I'm in there helping out whoever's coaching the class. I'm helping and instruct the class. Brad's getting on social media a lot more. We done a few little $2 ads on Facebook, and all of a sudden you got traction again. Mm-hmm. But if we was in there working every day, we wouldn't be able to have the energy to do that on top of the other duties we already have.
Yep.
So I mean, it was a no-brainer, and and that's what kind of where I'm at with it, where I want to be, and is to still be in the gym. I mean, I'm never going to. I'm a 1%er. This is it.
Yep.
And 28 years in, I'm not stopping now, and.
But exactly what you said a minute ago. I'm at the point I want to work on the business instead of in the business. Mm-hmm. And so all these little moves we're making is helping the customer and client experience be better, but I'm still there. It's not like I'm just sitting at home now.
Yeah.
So,
and that's where people start to get themselves in trouble in any business, is when they start to get comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm gonna take Monday off or Friday off, and you can do that occasionally. I'm from the school of thought that, you know what, I want to be here. I'm not getting out of bed mad that I got to go to work. Is there I don't know, there hasn't been in 12 years where there's been a Friday where I'm like, you know what, I think I just want to sit home and watch The Real Housewives. It's not my deal. But if that's your thing, you want to do that once a month or whatever, great. But I think it's one of those things where you give yourself an inch, and it becomes easier then to pull yourself out of that. And man, there's no such thing as a small business that's going to run well when the owner's absent. It just doesn't work. No. It doesn't work. And having both you guys is it's an incredible power play, because now you've got two voices and two brains working on this whole thing. So I think it's cool to see. It's so easy for me to sit here and say, yeah, that was a smart progression. But I bet you going through that, every one of those phases was pretty painful. And would you say that each phase got a little more painful? Like the first move was painful, but not as bad as the second move, and not as bad as the third? Do you think that you've gotten better with dealing with the pain?
No,
or
worse. Okay. I told Brad after this one, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it ever again.
He was walking like he needed a walker by the end of the move.
I mean, it was 72 hours, I mean, the days. It's 16 hours straight.
Yep.
You get home, you eat whatever you can find. You wake up and you're back there at 6 the very next morning, if not 5, because if you're there early enough before anybody else shows up, I can actually get some things done that kind of need to get in a place so I can get other people to do it while I'm putting the rig and putting the floor down, and just
you
all
ask
of
people to come help, and then there's 3 or 4 of them that are actually just counterproductive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they start talking to somebody else, and then they're like, oh, let me put this together for you. I'm like,
yeah,
it's okay.
Chris didn't put together one bike, but he's already fixed 2 of them.
Yeah, it's...
That's kind of like Agnew and Brent.
Oh, man.
They had a skier that they were going to put together. It took them about 3.5 hours.
Holy cow.
Took it together, put it together, and they forgot the Loctite. They're like, man, Steve's going to probably ask us if we put Loctite on here. They took the whole thing back apart, put Loctite. It was great.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
No, I would say each new step was actually more risky, though.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Because you give more. Now you start talking about, man, you're at a different stage in your life with a wife and kids, where now if you screwed up the first one, it's just you. And, you know, Chris is, you know, he's not 41, he's 32, 33. It's not the end of the world. Now there's different responsibilities that go along with that, because now you've got a different point in your life where, man, you just convinced your wife to sell your house.
Yeah.
You better be right.
Right. And then, I mean,
If you didn't know, he told you. You better be right
And you
now.
hope that you were right telling me to do it.
Steve's CYA-ing right now.
he told me, he was like, here's what Jess said whenever I wanted to do this and this and this. And yeah, I mean, you called it. Ashley's going to be resistant about this, and she's not going to like renting this house or whatnot. But
Yeah.
you know, I can see light at the end of the tunnel. You know, we're going to build, and I told her,
Absolutely.
you can build whatever you want now
Yeah.
for the sacrifice you made.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm telling you, and I think the more risks that you take, the more thankful you are for the success that you have. And I think that's why nobody that's successful, they're not successful because it was easy. They're successful because they were resilient. They just persisted through all of that when everybody else wanted to quit. We were getting choked out today by by the jiu-jitsu, by Steve.
Oh, man.
And it made so much sense to me, because he's like, I want it to be, when you're on the bottom and I'm choking you out, I want you to think about quitting. And as I was getting choked out, and I obviously was thinking about quitting, I was like, man, this is what it feels like all the time. It's like every year, the first 8 years, it felt like I was getting choked out. But you're constantly, you're doing it right as an entrepreneur. It sucks to say that, but if you are constantly feeling that, like that, man, I'm just not comfortable right now. There's something else I want to do, and I'm trying to get there, and you're just never comfortable. And I think if we can keep that feeling of never being comfortable, we can be happy with where we're at. But guess what? 2 years from now, you're gonna be like, hey, man, we should probably start looking at another building. You know, you'll get to that point where you're like, man, I don't like this feeling of not moving forward. And that's where I think you guys are gonna find yourself.
Yeah, well, we talked about that years ago with you, and because we wanted to hit 200 members. You know, nobody in Johnson City's got 200 members, and there's only one CrossFit box in Johnson City besides us now. So I mean, all the competition is gone, and but you was like, as soon as you do that, you'll want 250, and as soon as you do that, you'll want 300, and it just, and that's kind of like fitness though. You know, or earning money. As soon as you reach what you want, there you just move the target. You move the field goal.
Yeah.
You know, you move the touchdown line.
It's the
again.
process. It's the rewarding. It's not the end goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I hope people can listen to this and understand. You know, you're talking about 9 years, and now you're hearing these guys say, "Hey, you know, we're just about where we want to be," and I think that's par for the course. I think that's the 10-year plan, man. I think at 10 years, that's
what I told him. I was like, you know, we've been doing Thunder Valley for almost a decade, right?
a decade.
And I'm like, that's something.
Yeah.
I mean, we're basically the last CrossFit standing of any CrossFit in Johnson City. I mean, they've all closed. They've opened and been closed within a month, and you know, we get all these other ones. And Brad was talking about the successes we've had over the last 9 years today. What was some other ones?
Oh, I mean, they just go on forever.
I know.
You know, we've helped an adaptive athlete be the fittest in the world.
He was world champion. I mean, it's
worked out with Froning. It's just, but
yeah.
You know, it's just the day-to-day working with your members and seeing them have success that is the best part of it.
I'd like to vote early now, because you know they'll be back at the 10-year mark, because it's, you know, isn't 10 years like silver or gold? What do you do for a 10-year anniversary? You should know this. I'll have to look it up. But there's something special. Amethyst, okay.
Yeah.
But maybe next time, I wanted to go get buffalo wings or something today and take skip the workout. These guys come, they want to squat, they want to do a terrible EMOM. I mean, can we just have some fun next time?
I wanted to snatch now.
Chris wanted to snatch. All I want to do is have some fun. And I got Philip over here busting my chops. Well, let's do the EMOM. Let's do this. Let's do that. So I'm hoping at the 10.
Y'all have never seen me. I'd have been up here.
Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you guys coming on. I can't wait. I think as crazy as it sounds, I think the next year is going to be huge for you guys.
Yeah,
I
man.
think settling in to the new spot and then figuring out how to set your finances up to be able to go out and do something.
Yeah, and just
really
even
fun.
making that 10-year mark in the CrossFit industry. I mean, how many are there?
There can't be that many.
I don't think so.
There can't be.
But
There can't be.
Now, Steve, thanks for all you've done for us, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been rewarding for sure. For sure.
My wife's not always happy with you, but
When you build that new monster house, I'll talk to your wife.
maybe
again.
that'll be the biggest victory is just her being happy after.
We should
all
get
of our
some
time
kind of
together.
like thing made like this.
And it's
But it's you. And when she walks in, it's in the living room. See how long that stays up.
Love it.
all right, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.